Okay, here's what I geek out over.
We can talk Greek literature if you're into it, whatever.
Okay. Yes, Wonder Woman is probably number one because I've been collecting coffee mugs and graphic novels and all sorts of Wonder Woman artwork since I was a kid.
How many mugs do you have?
I am up to about 30 now, and that's not including like my Disney Princess ones and a couple, like I've got my Sons of Anarchy coffee mug and, you know, a couple of sports ones and my LA Dodgers.
You gotta round out the fandoms.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And the other thing that I geek out super hard about is the hairband Slaughter. So for all of you youngins out there, this is a band from the late 80s, early 90s that had some of those like hairband metal hits. And if you want to do yourselves the most amazing favor, you just need to go do a little Google search for Slaughter, the band. And I geek out, like I fangirl over them so hard that it's ridiculous. I've seen them in concert a couple times, a few times, and I just kind of like started really getting into them over the last few years. And so I started this all-girl tribute band called Slaughter, and we just had...
my God, that name is so good!
So we just had our first...
Yes, applaud for how good that name is!
I'm blushing. And so we just had our first concert like a week ago.
Oh.
It was just a week ago this past Thursday, and it went really, really well, because we were like, this may bomb, we don't know, but it went really well, and they invited us back at the venue to do it again. So
That's awesome.
Slaughter is going to return in February of next year. But yeah, so that hairband, like when people come up to me at conventions and they say, oh my gosh, I love you, and you know, your stuff makes me so happy, I'm like, I get you. I feel you, because I feel that same way about this band. So anybody that brings me cool Slaughter stuff to a signing, I'm going to sign all your stuff for free.
Ooh.
I'm putting this out there. But it's...
Have you done your signings for today, or do you have anything
I
else?
have not.
Oh.
I'm doing a signing at 3:15, so if you guys find something really cool and bring up some good
All right,
Slaughter
everyone,
trivia for me.
go get some Slaughter merchandise. You have very little time.
Very little time. But yeah, so that's a couple of things that I geek out pretty hard about in my real life.
Awesome.
My dorky real life.
No, that's great. Now, do you find that you tend to enjoy like music and geek out over the musical aspects of things like that?
I do, yeah.
Did you find any of that in working on FLCL? This is very, I mean, I don't know if you got a chance, at least initially, to really get how music-driven that whole show was originally,
Yeah.
or if that just kind of came later.
I actually feel like there have been a few shows that I've worked on where the music was such a huge component of the show. Samurai Champloo,
Absolutely.
mixing the hip hop with the anime was like a huge deal at the time. That's an awesome soundtrack. You know, obviously the pillows in FLCL, and then you've got in Durarara the jazz and the really dissonant, you know, jazz soundtrack to that. Even if you look at something like Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night, the orchestral music in that, like I just feel that the music in a lot of these projects really adds to the show or the game.
Absolutely, and it really seems like the more focus a project does with something like music that can very often be kind of thrown to the wayside a little bit, winds up being these like long-lasting, incredibly
Absolutely.
successful projects. Now, you brought up Fate Stay Night. I don't know anything about it.
Nice.
Would you be willing to tell me about it? Because it's several series or seasons.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
there's been a number of spin-offs and chapters. if
Where
you
would I
will.
start?
Oh gosh, what would you guys recommend?
Fate Zero.
Fate Zero?
Fate Zero.
Show of hands, Fate Zero. Should we start with that one? Okay,
So that's the opener
yeah.
to getting into it. Okay.
I don't know how much to tell you other than that they're...
You play
okay.
Saber.
Let's see. Do we have too many minors? No. Okay, so I can say badasses. So there are these people.
We have microphones, we can say it really loud too.
So there are these people, and they basically can harness the power of these various badasses.
Okay.
And they're all fighting to take possession of this Holy Grail.
Okay.
And
this is very Arthurian legend based.
Yes.
I heard you have Excalibur last night when we were playing D&D.
I did. I played D&D for the first time last night. It's crazy. I was not very good, but I had a great time.
You were fantastic.
I was all right.
You did the most damage out of everyone to that Blue Eyes White Dragon. That's right, we fought a Blue Eyes White Dragon.
That's right. Well, I had Excalibur. How could you not whip that out?
Fighting a dragon? Come on.
Boom.
That should have been one. That should have been first attack. Instead, we sent a child to punch the dragon.
Well, you know, I always like to send out the radiation pigeon first, you know.
There you go. Canaries into the mud.
Yeah, just so.
Yeah. Awesome. So you play Saber. Who is your character? I want to find out because I want to get into it.
See, and again, I'm not sure how much to tell him, you guys.
Everything.
Other than that, there is a lot about her character that has to do with the King Arthur legend and what we think we know about it versus what is actually true, what we find out.
So they kind of massage the legends and have their own take on it.
Correct. Would you guys say I'm right in saying that? I don't want to be too cryptic, and yet I just don't want to give too much away. Right? I'm getting a thumbs up there.
Okay, good. I think we're striking a good balance.
Hot chick with a sword. Do you need
there we
anything
go.
else? I like it.
There we go.
I'm getting the double fist back there. That's yeah.
And speaking of legends and kings and quests, King's Quest. You did some voice work.
I did.
I don't know how long it had been since there had been a Sierra King's Quest game, but when I saw that franchise kind of came back for a new game series, it was incredible. It was honestly
charming.
One of the most beautiful games I've seen come out in like recent years.
I loved working on that one, and I actually signed one of those at this convention.
Oh, fun.
I think it might have been the first or second thing related to King's Quest that I've ever signed.
Wow.
Yeah, it made me feel really good.
So if anyone hasn't played King's Quest, probably should.
A lot of fun.
It's really good. Did you have any experience playing any of the earlier games, or were you familiar with them, or is it a completely new thing to jump into?
I only knew it by name, so it was kind of a new thing for me to jump into, which sometimes is nice because then you don't have, like I'm a big X-Men fan, like I read a lot of those comic books and stuff like that, so when I got the role of Emma Frost, I was super nervous because I loved those comic books and I wanted to do it justice. So on the good side, I could do research and go and read all these X-Men comic books for research.
Yes.
And know more about the backstory. But then something like King's Quest, sometimes it's kind of fun to go in and just have no preconceived ideas about what you're doing and what you're creating. And then you just start with kind of a fresh slate with the director and stuff.
Yeah.
So
going into, were you familiar with kind of the long history of like what those games were? So if you haven't been informed yet, I was going to school you a little bit. King's Quest are, as a franchise, were like the original point-and-click adventure games. And the early ones looked like a graphing calculator. That is how old school they are. They used to sell them on a floppy disk in a Ziploc bag.
Yes.
And
right next to the Oregon Trail or something.
Yes. And as a franchise, it was just one of those things that was so good and so big. It was one of the first beloved game franchises that, just because of the incredible fan base, was able to keep living for so many years through the evolution of video games. And to see it come back again on these like newer generation consoles after easily 10, 15 years was incredible.
That's awesome. I wonder if they have any of like the T-shirts from the vintage.
Oh, that would be really
Wouldn't that
cool.
be dope?
No, that'd be so fun.
I kind of like
I don't even, like, they're so old, I don't even think they'd even considered merchandising at that point.
Right?
Somebody needs to make some old school
Come on,
King's
you
Quest
entrepreneurs
shirts.
out there.
We have some graphic designers in the audience, I can almost guarantee it. Speaking of games, another game that I did not realize you were in until just now, Prince of Persia.
Yes.
The reboot.
Yes,
The
I was
reboot.
Elika in Prince of Persia, and I'm always amazed because there are some people that just really hated that game, and then there are other people that loved that game. So I get, I get passion. I get passion about that.
I loved it. So it was a kind of reboot attempt at the franchise, but it was better. I thought it was much better than the previous games, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that rather than playing as a solo protagonist in the earlier versions, you got to play as two people.
And what was even cooler about that is that most of the time with video games, we record by ourselves, and Nolan North and I recorded all of our sessions together.
That was my next
For
question.
that, yes.
It really sounded like, because I knew that video games are typically, they want the cleanest audio with no crosstalk whatsoever, but that game was so banter heavy between you and Nolan North. What was it like getting to work on a video game in that kind of experience?
Nolan North is filthy. He is a filthy, filthy man. You can quote me on that. So I laughed so hard that I practically peed my pants on a regular basis recording that game. He would, yeah, I can't even say what he would say in there. But it had...
We can tell by the look on your face.
Just, yeah. He would do some jokes that were really not safe for work in those sessions. And he does an amazing Jason Statham impression.
Oh, wow.
And that makes me really giddy. So if he would ever just want to make me start giggling like a little, grade schooler, he would just start saying dirty things to me in a Jason Statham voice. And I would just be like, Nolan, I'm trying to work. So yeah, I'm blushing just thinking about it. So we had a really great time recording that game. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Did you find a lot of the banter seemed to have a bit of an improvisational quality? Was it all scripted, or were you able to kind of develop a little bit of your own stuff?
It was mostly scripted, but there's always just a little, Nolan can't...
A dollop.
There's always a dollop with Nolan North in there.
He can't, it seems like he can't stop at where the line ends.
Here's the line, and he's always just like, just
tiptoe over.
Reach across a little.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit.
So there's always just a little of his flair.
Excellent. Now, dreaded question. Of all of the characters that you have voiced over the many, many, many years, what's one that you like a lot? I'm not going to say favorite because that's impossible.
Okay.
I've learned how to ask this question.
That is,
What's one that's cool?
man.
What's
Because
fun?
I can never pick a favorite.
What are 5 that are kind of okay?
5 that are kind of okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I loved, it only lasted a season on Nickelodeon, but I played this character, Amanda Killman, on Bunsen as a Beast. And she was like the nemesis, the villain. She had this mouth full of braces, and she would talk like this, and she'd have these long, like, villainous soliloquies. And it was like really fun to do it. Yeah, she'd be like, hey. She was like kind of William Shatner-esque, and it was just delightful. So I loved playing her. I loved playing, there was a Disney Junior show called Henry Hugglemonster, and I played Baby Ivor. I'm in a phase right now where I'm playing a lot of babies, like on Doc McStuffins and Vampirina, and I played Baby Ivor and just made baby noises, and you cannot have a bad day when you go into the studio and you're like, just kind of start.
And that just improves the mood throughout the rest of the day.
I mean, it does, right? Don't you just want to go skipping down the hallways now?
I want a baba of warm milk.
Right? I didn't even go into the weeping and wailing as a baby, but that's...
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So those two come to mind. Man, here's a really deep cut. I was in the Lemony Snicket video game, and I got to play one of the nasty ants, and I got to sing really badly. And I remember singing about the Baudelaire orphans, and just in this really shrewish hag voice. That's really fun.
Do you find that you enjoy working on more villainous characters or the
Yes.
heroic characters? Okay, villains all the way.
Villains are always more fun to play. Villains are, people are like, what's more fun? Always the villains. I mean, it really is. What was that? They are, right? They totally are.
Applause for villains!
Villains.
A sentence I never thought I would say.
Yeah, so those are, I don't know, so those are some of the more deep cuts as far as things that have been very fun for me.
I do want to ask about your work on Rick and Morty.
Yes.
So you are Jessica.
Jessica,
and Rick's computer.
Rick's spaceship, which now has its own Funko Pop doll, which I'm like, I have truly arrived.
You've done it.
I've made it.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because the way that all started, I was cast as Jessica, so we did some episodes with her. And then there was one episode where there were just a couple of lines as Rick's spaceship, entering space portal in 3 seconds, and so fine, it was great. And we were messing around in the booth, and I said something like, shut your mouth, you are a dork. I don't want to hear what you have to say to me. Something like this. And they're like, oh, wouldn't that be funny if we had this episode where, the ship, is just,
oh, no.
going crazy and stuff like that. So they wrote the Keep Summer Safe episode.
Because of that?
Because of that.
Oh, wow. That was probably
cool.
one of the most disturbing episodes.
Isn't it wonderful? I loved
fantastic.
it. Yeah. So that's been a lot of fun to work on that show.
What has the recording process been working on that show, knowing full well that there are many videos online of some people recording on that show while drinking heavily?
Well, I do not drink heavily when I'm working on that show.
It's just a Justin Roiland thing.
Well, listen, he can do whatever he wants. They're geniuses and they're amazing, and I just don't want to get fired.
Good.
Right? Good. Yeah, being employed is nice.
Good way to get a job.
Yeah, but it's impossible to get everybody's schedules at the same time, so usually we go in and record by ourselves, and Justin's directing and stuff like
so
that.
that winds up being a bit more of an independent recording session
Absolutely.
for the episodes.
But the thing that's so cool is that Justin and Dan, they've got such clear visions of what they seem to want for the show, so you just go in and you feel like you're in really good hands recording it.
Awesome. Now, working with directors, what are some of the more challenging directions you've had to encounter?
Can you speed it up but just make it sound slower? Can you do it like you're not acting? Can you get through it faster but don't make it sound like you're going faster? Those are some of the worst directions that you get.
I'm sure they make sense to people when they're saying them, but then you hear it, like now, and it's nonsense. It's describing things that can't possibly exist.
I tell you, a good voice director is kind of an unsung hero in this whole process because, especially if you're talking about an anime show, we go in and we don't see the scripts beforehand. So you're really putting your trust in the director that they know where the arc of the story is going, where the character is going. I said this yesterday in one of the panels, but you want a director that says, oh, you know what, don't say that line in a flirty way because in about 12 episodes you're going to find out that he's your brother. Good note ahead of time. Good note ahead of, because I'm making the best choice that I can with the information that I have. But if you have a really awesome director, they've got a vision of what's happening with the whole show and your characters, and they keep everything sort of on track. They keep the train on the tracks.
It's not just episode.
The clients and the producers and the creators of the show and the talent, you need that go-between a lot of times to communicate what they're trying to get from you. Because I'll be happy to do something in the studio 20 times if you need me to, but I need you to explain what it is that you're trying to get.
And why each take is different.
Right.
Why it needs to be different.
Good voice directors are a huge godsend.
Excellent. Are there any other hurdles that you've found? Obviously, you have an incredible breadth of work spanning just an incredible range of different types of voices and different characters and archetypes. But are there any that you find are difficult to begin to approach?
I think that the sessions where maybe you don't necessarily have a strong director are harder because you just sort of feel like you're kind of wandering in a forest. I would say the more challenging things sometimes are technical things. Like there are certain video game sessions can be very, very difficult on your voice because all those times when you're playing a game and your character's getting punched or they're throwing a spell or they're kicking someone, we will have pages and pages and pages that say small kick, medium kick, long kick, small getting punched in the stomach, medium getting punched in the stomach, now small getting punched in the throat, and it like you'll have 300 of those reactions that we have to record. So it can get very difficult on your throat, and so you have to be careful vocally that you're protecting your instrument. I know that sounds so she, but you have to protect your instrument, kids.
You do.
You do.
It's a fact.
It's a thing.
I've done musical theater. I know how rough it is. Oh my God, hitting those high C's.
Multiple times a week.
Oh my God, 2 shows a day. Excellent. Thank you so much. I know we want to open up questions to the audience. So do we have an extra mic? We do! Jace!
Yeah.
Hi, Jace.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Kari, I have the monitor up on the stage. Can you hear this mic
Okay.
from that
we
speaker
do.
in front of you?
I hear
Yeah, I
you.
can
understand?
hear you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I guess that was an issue yesterday.
All right.
Now we can hear very well. Do we have any questions in the audience? Show of hands. Excellent. Jace, take it away.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yes. Oh. We have a mic over here? We have multiple microphones. Oh, awesome. Hello.
Hi. You did a radio drama like 10 years ago called I Love Bees. It was really different from everything you
I
did.
love bees. Yeah, it was Janissary James in that.
What was it like? Because it's totally different from everything else you've ever did. Like, I know radio dramas are totally different from other mediums you've done too.
That was a really intense project, and we recorded it as an ensemble. So, because they wanted sort of that overlapping sound, like everybody was just in a room and it was all happening. Because usually when you're recording stuff, they're like, oh, we need it clean, so the editors can edit things. But with that, it was very guerrilla style, and we were all just recording on top of each other, and we were all in the room together. So it was really intense, and there were some of those scenes where we would take a break afterwards, and all the actors would be like, wow, I'm really kind of emotionally wiped because a lot was happening.
Thank you. And another question from the audience?
Hi, so last time you told us yesterday that when you first got Haruko, you were given a VHS tape of the Japanese dub, kind of like get a feel of the character. Is that something that is still done today? Not VHS, but seeing the Japanese voice and hearing it, kind of getting a feel of the character. And as a sub-question, have you picked up any Japanese from that?
Oh, well, those are great questions. I think now it's a little easier. I mean, there's still a lot of times when we record things, everything's under non-disclosure and stuff like that. But if you know what you're auditioning for, or if you get a part in an anime and you know the title of it and stuff. Now with the internet being what it is, a lot of times you can Google things and you can find at least clips from the original Japanese a lot easier than you could back in my day, 100 years ago. And as far as Japanese, it's interesting. I went to Japan for the first time last year, and I'm supposed to go back again next month because I was flying over there for a convention last year, and my flight got delayed, and so by the time they got me on another flight with the time change, by the time I landed in Japan, I had missed the convention, so it was very sad. But I stayed and I did some sightseeing, so I have picked up just a tiny bit of Japanese, from my anime sessions and from trying to learn a little bit before I went over there, but it is my goal to learn more. I just fell in love with Japan and had an amazing time there, and very excited to spend more time there, so.
That's wonderful. I was also going to ask, with, I guess, just the fact that anime is now being dubbed much sooner into the development process than it's ever been before. Obviously, FLCL having it simul-dubbed is incredible and very, very new. But have you noticed that the industry in voiceover for anime specifically is starting to get to the point where the anime is not even out in Japan yet and they're already starting to work on that?
I definitely have noticed the overlap, and it's getting faster and faster. I mean, when we were doing Durarara, we would do just 1 or 2 episodes at a time because we were timing it out to release them, I think on Crunchyroll, at the same time that they were getting released in Japan. Or, they were trying to kind of do it in sync. And then with FLCL, not even having it done yet, and we were recording parts and pieces of it. So I definitely think that those lines are blurring.
It seems like the technology is catching up to where it
Yes.
really can be done in unison with a completely different team on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know from here where it will go, but
That's going to catch on? Or?
Yeah, but it's definitely changed since I've started.
Awesome. And any other questions from the audience we have right over here? Plenty of hands.
My question is, what villain do you most hope to play in the future if you can?
What villain would I most like to play?
Yeah, because I remember you said you love playing villains, so which
Oh,
one?
this is a good question.
I would like to open that up a little bit. Which villain have you enjoyed playing the most, and who do you want to play? You haven't yet.
Gosh. I don't know. Emma Frost on any given day is a hero or a villain, and just whatever mood she wakes up in. So she was a lot of fun to play. I liked the Enchantress a lot. Charmcaster in Ben 10 was a lot of fun. I was so thrilled because every time they would do a reboot, they would recast a lot of people. So at least for the first 3 reboots, I got to play Charmcaster. As far as who I'd like to play, I do love Catwoman. As a villainess. So she would be kind of up there. Man, I gotta think on that. I'm gonna think on it more, and if I think of it as we're answering more questions, I'm gonna see if I can
Figure that one out.
figure that one
Suss
out.
it out. Another questions from the audience. Perfect.
Hi, Kari.
Hi.
My comment about Haruko's rapping and airballing, that was super. I know
Thank you.
filthy, goofy Dante would get leashed by Lady if he ever tried doing it with Haruko-chan. As far as Devil May Cry and Ben 10's Charmcaster, I really watched it, rented. How is it? What is it like?
Well, I mean, they're such great characters. I mean, Devil May Cry, I was so sad because, when they ended up doing one of the sequels, another company got a hold of it, and then they went non-union, and so I couldn't come back and do Lady, which made me so sad, because I really loved that part. But you know, that happens with cartoons and games. Like, I'm always grateful for the chance that I get to play a character. If you get to play a character more than once, you just thank your lucky stars, because so many other pieces go into creating the project that it's become more and more rare to have one person be the definitive voice of anything, you know? So
Properties get purchased.
Change hands, and you know, there are reboots and they take it in a different stylistic direction. So yeah, anytime I've gotten to come back and play a character more than once, it's kind of an honor.
Wonderful. And, oh, Iggy over here.
Hi. I wanted to start by saying it was an absolute honor to meet you yesterday, so thank you for that. I also wanted to apologize because I definitely butchered your name, so I wanted to try again. So, Kari Wahlgren.
Yes!
Nailed it.
Kari like Ferrari.
Kari like Ferrari, everybody.
And when you're not recording for the tons and tons of roles you're doing, what do you like to do with your free time? What are your hobbies?
In my free time, oh, that's a great question. I'm a big reader. I love to read. I usually have a couple of books going on at any one time. I just finished a really good book called The Soul of an Octopus. It was about octopuses. And it is octopuses, not octopi, surprisingly, just so you all know.
Something you would learn if you read that
The
book.
more you know. So I love to read. I love to go hear live music. Now that I know that I can go to rock and metal concerts and not get kicked out for being a big goober, I've started going to a lot more of those concerts in the last few years. I love trying new restaurants with my friends. I work out a lot. I run races and take spin class with Courtney Taylor, one of the other guests that's here. She's amazing. Yeah.
You play in a cover band.
I play in a Slaughter cover band.
Actually, I did want to check with you really quick. Are you on social media? Where can people find out more about you and hear about your upcoming Slaughter performances?
Oh, so I do. You know, I'm super shy, so I was kind of reluctant to get into the whole social media thing, but it's been so lovely to hear from fans. Like, I really actually enjoy getting messages from people and getting your pictures from conventions, because sometimes I don't have time to take them myself. So I'm like, oh, it was the person dressed up as Haruko. That's a great shot. So I'm on Instagram at Kari_Wahlgren, because something with my name without the underline was taken. So. And then on Twitter at Kari Wahlgren. So if you just find the spelling of my name in the brochure, that's...
Or on this giant screen
Or on the
next to
giant
us.
screen right there.
And so Instagram has an underscore.
That's correct.
Twitter does not.
Twitter does not. So at Instagram, it's just at Kari_Wahlgren. And yeah, you guys can follow me on either. And I have a Facebook official page, but I don't post there as much. And
so the Twitter, Instagram, those are going to be
yeah,
the key
Twitter and
ones.
Instagram are usually the ones where I can interact more with people. And you know, every once in a while, I've been trying to live tweet during the FLCL episodes and stuff like that, which has been super fun.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, it's always really fun to hear from people. So please feel free to.
And then you said
keep in touch.
Slaughter, it does have a show coming up pretty soon.
In February. If any of you are in Los Angeles in February, or would like to come down to Los Angeles February 21st, we will actually be performing.
Yes.
I'm going to post about it, I guess. So.
Excellent.
It's crazy.
It's fantastic.
It's so much fun. Like, we just didn't know if it was going to be a complete bomb, but
Now you're going to have a whole bunch more people that are going to just pack the house.
that's right. Absolutely.
Some new Slaughter fans.
I'm telling you guys, you just got to go listen to a couple of their songs. You're like, I don't know who this band is, but just trust me. Just start with Up All Night and Fly to the Angels, because those were their two big hits. And those can be your gateway songs.
Excellent. And some more questions from the audience? Yes, right over here with Jace.
Yes, I wanted to know, what's your favorite anime?
My favorite anime? I watched Dragon Ball Z and Eon Flux when I was in college. And I'm so sorry if anybody loved the live action version, but I was so disappointed with the Eon Flux movie because the anime was so trippy and bizarre and like blew my mind. It like blew my head off my body.
It was one of those like very surreal,
Just
experimental.
so surreal and just messed up and like, yeah. So yeah, those are the ones that I kind of watched. And Samurai Champloo, I mean, I know I was in that one, but I actually really loved watching that one too.
It's, I think, very difficult not to enjoy that one. It speaks to, I think, a lot of different genres, even within its own genre.
Yeah, I agree.
That there's something in it for everybody. All right, and other questions over here?
Hi, Kari. Is this on? Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask, are there any guest stars you guys want to get on Rick and Morty, or there's been talks? Because two I would like to see is Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd.
Nice. Well,
That'd be a trip.
Pretty trippy. You never know with those guys. I mean, I'm always amazed who turns out to be fans. I did this warm-up video because people are like, how do you get ready for voiceover sessions? And I sing in the car. So I made this video singing a Marilyn Manson song in the car in this like little girl voice like this. And it just, because my friend was like, I don't believe that you really do that. You have to film it. So I did, and he put it on the internet, and it kind of, it got a lot of views. And I woke up this morning, and he texted me, and he's like, Marilyn Manson just tweeted your video. And it turned, this happened just hours ago. If you go to my Instagram and Twitter page. Incentive, right? Like, I'm like, is this my life right now? I can't believe this is happening. And apparently he's a big Rick and Morty fan and stuff like that. So, I mean, you never know who they're going to get on that show. Like, I was at one of our sessions and John Mayer just popped in to watch stuff.
Just to hang out.
Just to hang out. Like, hi.
Again, I think Rick and Morty is another show that has something for everybody.
It's bizarre. Like the whole Game of Thrones cast, apparently, when they were on location shooting, it was their favorite show to watch. So they would come and hang out at Comic-Con with it's one of those, I don't understand what's happening in my life.
I can't think of a show that could possibly be more the opposite of Game of Thrones.
Right? But apparently they need a release, They're like, man, after the Red Wedding, what do we want to watch?
The episode where you're a ship and
keep someone safe.
Yeah, keep someone safe.
And I'm just like a tiny part of the show, but it's a testament to Justin and those guys. What an amazing thing they created.
What was it like seeing? I mean, it's still a relatively new show, but it's exploded.
It's exploded.
And what's it been like getting to kind of see that grow so quickly?
It is very odd, when you see something started as just an idea in someone's mind, and then you have the first preliminary audition for the pilot episode, and then you get that pilot episode, and then they're like, well, maybe the show will get picked up, maybe they'll buy it, and then to come fast forward to now where a few people watch it.
Yeah, a fair number.
So it's pretty surreal, it's pretty crazy. But I think the thing that makes that show so brilliant is that it's gross out humor, but it's incredibly smart.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a mixture of the two.
I think taking an intellectual approach to it kind of helps salve some of the more risque or violent aspects of it. It's good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think that's about our time.
Is that our time? I'm signing, one more signing at 3:15 to 4:15. So if you haven't had a chance to at least walk by and wave or something like that, I'm going to be around. And thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.